American Revolution, and the question that we're looking at was, should the American colonists have revolted against Great Britain or not?
Oh my God.
So, some students are having to defend a position that they did not believe in, because we had to have people that said no, they should not have revolted. So this is not necessarily the opinion of the student. They were randomly chosen. So we've already flipped a coin, and this side won, and so they gave this side the opportunity to go first. And remind me, is your side for or against the revolution? For. So this side of the class believes that the colonists should revolt, and this side would be what we call loyalists. They were going to stay loyal to King George, and they did not want a revolution. So we're going to begin with the Patriots side, we might call them, and for revolution, and they're going to give us their their introduction, and then their first two reasons why there should be a revolution. Go.
25,000 revolutionary soldiers were killed during the Revolutionary War, and 25,000 were severely wounded, as cited on the website foxtrotalpha.com. Obviously, if this many colonists fought for the revolution, they clearly thought it was for the greater good. The colonists definitely should have revolted against the British.
To begin, one big reason that the colonists should have gone to war is that their natural rights were being violated. John Locke, an English philosopher and physician, regarded as one of the most influential people of Enlightenment thinkers, said that America had the right to life, liberty, and property. One of the natural rights threatened was their rights of liberty to freely move about the country as they desired. Britain was low on money, so they needed a way to gain money. According to Chapter 5 in our textbook.
They started with the Proclamation of 1763. The king sent troops to the colonists to enforce the Proclamation of 1763 and keep the peace with the Native Americans. In 1763, Britain's Prime Minister George Grenville set out to stop the smuggling. Parliament passed a law to have accused smugglers tried by royally appointed judges rather than the local juries. Grenville knew that American juries often found smugglers innocent. Parliament also empowered custom officers to obtain writs of assistance. These documents allowed the officers to search almost anywhere, shops, warehouses, and even private homes, for smuggled goods. These two issues were important to the colonists because they affected their property rights.
In addition, colonists also believed they had the right to be secure in their homes without the threat of officers barging in to search for smuggled goods. This angered the colonists because this violated their rights of property ownership. Another natural right that was being threatened was their right to life. For example, during the Boston Massacre, British soldiers killed several colonists due to them throwing stones and saying mean things to the British soldiers. We got all of our sources from the connected textbook. People should have a right to running their own life. This means Americans have the right to live, and in particular, should not to be killed by another human being without a justified reason.
Another big reason that the colonists should have revolted is all of the taxes that the British imposed on them. You guys read the chapter, you know about all the taxes, all of the intolerable acts and everything. So you know that it was really bad, and you know that the colonists were really angry. Page 119 of the textbook states, in 1765, Parliament passed the Stamp Act. This act placed a tax on all printed materials, and they had to have a stamp. You guys know about stamps today. They cost money, and the colonists didn't have that much money. Some were pretty poor, and they didn't have that much money to buy stamps, so they were pretty angry. They were angry because the colonists believed that the only people allowed to tax them should be their own representatives. Who taxes us today? Our government. Not the British people's government, not the Dominican Republic's government, our government. That's what the colonists believe in, and that's what's true. Patrick Henry got the House of Burgesses to take action and held an assembly that passed a resolution declaring that it had the only and sole exclusive right and power to lay taxes.
Another tax the British placed on the colonists was the Tea Act.
Connect Ed textbook states, the British passed the Tea Act. It gave the East India Tea Company total control of the tea market. This monopolized the market, forcing the colonists to pay an unwanted tax. This angered the colonists so much that they couldn't help but do something about it. They did not want to pay any tax, and they did not want to be told what tea they could buy. Lesson 2 of Chapter 5 says, the Daughters of Liberty issued a pamphlet declaring that rather than part with freedom, we'll part with our tea. The colonists painted their faces and dressed as Indians so they could not be recognized. The colonists then boarded the 3 cargo ships that housed 342 chests of tea and dumped every last grain into the Boston Harbor, pages 124 to 125 of Chapter 5 in the textbook. That is how much the taxes angered the colonists and made them want to be free from British.
Okay, good job. Let's give them a hand. That was awesome. All right. So it's very clear that the colonists had many, many reasons to separate. So now we're going to hear from the Loyalist group, and they're going to tell us why they think they should not have revolted. Yes, sir.
So we read all of our reasons and stuff?
Just like they
Yeah,
did.
we're going to do your intro
Oh, okay.
and reason 1 and 2. Okay, begin.
Can you imagine all the lives that were lost in the American Revolution? If we would have stayed with Great Britain, those lives that were lost in battle would have been lost.
Also, we would have a much better reputation and we would have stayed with the British and much better government. The American colonists should have stayed with Great Britain.
To begin with, fewer lives would have not been lost. America's creation led to the deaths of many innocent people, mainly the Native Americans, killed by years of violence. Throughout history, 114 million Native Americans have been killed by American troops. This source was found at historian.com. That fact alone is a huge stain on our nation's history. But when you think about how an overplus of societies and cultures were annihilated by the hostile takeover of Native American lands, you realize that it committed the worst massacre in history. If the colonists had obeyed the proclamation in 1763, fewer encounters with Native Americans would have occurred and many Indian wars would have been prevented. Additionally, 32,324 lives were lost in the American Revolutionary War. This source also being found in historian.com. What this means is that many lives could have been saved if a peaceful resolution would have been found instead of war.
So many innocent people have been killed by America. Was it establishment really worth it? Sure, some things are worth dying for, but not as America in the place.
In addition, America would be better off today if we were still part of the British government. We would have a stronger government, military, and we would have lower crime rate. Also, we would have a better relationship with other countries. We would also have lower murder rates found in the nationmaster.com.
This would be important when dealing with global issues such as global warming and terrorism. Additionally, the total population would cause more people to enlist in the military, as well as more money for a stronger government. The U.S. problems such as immigration and crime would be less of a problem now. This is also sourced from Nationmaster.
Okay. All right. So their arguments were fewer people would have had to die, and that Great Britain's government there would be a larger population, therefore they would be a stronger nation than us being 2 separate nations. Is that right? Is that what your argument? Okay. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go back to this group, and you're going to tell us. You're going to kind of rebut what they said. You're going to tell us again why they're wrong. Okay?
Okay.
Some say that the colonies would have been better off if they had stayed with the British, mainly because the British had a bigger army at the time, and today have less crime in their country. That is true because gun laws are very strict there. They can't even own a .22 rifle, which I sourced from the Library of Congress. They also would have supposedly protected the colony, but Britain itself had a high poverty rate in the 1700s, which is also from the British Library. This means that the colonists actually would have been poor if they stayed with Britain. Also, Britain was across the ocean, which took supply ships months to arrive in America. And that was a problem for the colonists. They didn't want to have They didn't want to have to wait on the British for everything, and the other colonies couldn't trade with the American colony either.
It's true that many lives were lost in the Revolutionary War. However, there are some things worth finding. It was a war that would determine the fate or success of the future of the United States of America. If the colonists shouldn't have revolted, we would be a British nation. Redcoats would be roaming everywhere. We would have to pay ridiculous taxes. Do you really think British would give up America, their own discovery, without a fight? No. We tried to boycott, we tried to petition, they said no. We asked for the heavy taxes to be lifted, and still the British said no. So we had no choice but to fight. If the colonists wanted to have separated peacefully, the British might not have even let them separate.
Okay, and now is that all of your rebuttals?
Yes, sir.
Okay, before we do your conclusion, we're gonna have rebuttals on this side.
This information came from historian.com. On the other hand, some would argue that the colonies had a great point when they argued. No taxation without reputation. However, the reputation part is quite clear. The colonies after the war. British and passed taxes as the colonies because they needed some form of payment to recover. The colonies did really little in the way, yet they complained about equal in taxes. If the colony wanted equal, then they should know that the colonies pay taxes 10 times lower than people living in at that time and worldwide. Paying the lowest taxes, the colonies just didn't know how to be grateful.
The belief that taxes imposed on the Americans was unfair. It's flawed. Many of the oppressive taxes actually were used to pay for the 7 Years' War, which ended in 1763, left Britain with massive debts. My opponent may say that the taxes were still unfair, but the British actually spent huge amounts of money defending the colonies from the French. The colonists were the ones that broke the proclamation of 1763. If the colonists would have just listened to the British, they wouldn't have had to come over here and protect the colonists. If the colonists hadn't ignored the proclamation, then the Indians wouldn't have gotten mad and joined with the French so that they could kill the colonists. And without us, there wouldn't have been any colonies left. So, y'all really, that's all I got.
Another problem with the colonist revolution was the Boston Massacre. It was hardly a massacre because the colonists had already been in the fight that night. The following account comes from the website bostonmassacre.net, and the article is hardly a massacre, and this site appears to be a reputable source. One of the leaders, Edward Garrick, started insulting Private White, saying his company commander was a cheat. Despite the reinforcements and the actions taken by Captain Preston trying to control the crowd, the angry mob was getting out of control. 7 British soldiers attempted to take White to safety, but could not reach him and had to protect themselves. Some of the attackers were waving clubs and throwing stones. At one point, a colonist yelled, "You sons of bleep," to fire. "You can't kill us all. Fire. Why don't you fire? You dare not fire." In the next few minutes, an attacker threw a club at Private Hugh Montgomery, knocking him off of his feet. Montgomery fired a shot into the air after he had lifted himself up off the ground. He was stricken again with a club, and he pointed his gun at Richard Palms. Happening at the same time, another soldier, Private Matthew Kilroy, pointed his musket at the other 2 attackers, Edward Langford and Samuel Gray. "God bleep you, don't fire," Gray called out. Out of fear of being beaten to almost death like his fellow soldier, Private Kilroy fired the gun at Gray. More shots were fired and more people fell to the ground, wounded or dead, leaving the aftermath of 5 civilian deaths.
It was very unfortunate that some innocent people were killed, but not all of them were innocent. The incident was quickly blown out of proportion and used for propaganda against the soldiers. Remember, there are always 2 sides to every story, and the soldiers' side seemed to be often overlooked. Even the use of the word massacre is used out of context.
Very good. Okay. All right, we're ready for conclusions.
To conclude, the colonists should have revolted in today's society. Terrorism is considered a huge threat to the whole nation and other countries in which it also targeted, which could also cause another war, possibly a World War III. Even this is why we fight for our country, to pursue freedom life and liberty. A few of you might remember the time that Miss Drake punked us. For those of you who do not, Miss Drake showed us a fake email that stated we would have to pay for all printed materials that teachers give us. As you know, we were extremely mad, even wanting to go down to the office and jump Miss Backus. So you can imagine how the colonists felt when their livelihood was threatened and why they definitely had justification for a revolution.
As you can see, colonists should have not revolted. In peace, sons bury their fathers, and war, fathers bury their sons, which was said by Herodotus. This quote means that war disturbs the natural order of life and should be avoided at all costs.
Wow, I'm impressed. That was excellent, guys. Does anybody on either team have any final comments you want to say? Like maybe something you learned that you didn't know before, Lauren?
I have a question.
Okay.
This was for Tyler's. I said, did they find out about the British taxes online? Like, did they find out about the taxes online that are like modern day taxes? Did y'all find that? Because you said that we be paying crazy taxes.
No, he had just imagined that, I guess. And that's the importance of citing your sources. And for you 7th graders, we're practicing our essay writing skills at the same time that we're studying, because the way it was formatted is just like you have to do your argumentative essay. You have to have an introduction with a thesis. You need 2 body paragraphs at least that talk about your reasons or your points, as in the appeal. And then you need another body paragraph that is your rebuttal, or why the other side is wrong. And then you need a conclusion that restates your thesis and maybe has something at the end to make your reader think about. So that's what we did. And so in the appeal process, 7th graders, you know what that is, right? Your point, your evidence, your elaboration. And so what Lauren's bringing up is their evidence. She's calling him out. She's saying, you don't have any evidence for what you said about their taxes being higher now. That's why your evidence piece is so important, because critical readers and thinkers are going to say, is that just somebody's opinion, or is that really fact? And if it's fact, prove it. Yes. So that was a good eye, Lauren, on that.
Good job, Lauren.
Good job. Okay.
Good save, Lauren.
Sadie.
Okay, about we were talking about the Stamp Act, my group was, and when Ms. Drake punked us, you guys remember what the email said? All things that like accelerated math, you have to pay like 50 cents a page for every single page. It's very similar to the Stamp Act, which taxed all printed materials, everything. They had to pay a tax on it. Did we want to pay that tax?
No.
No. Then, and if we were even thinking about jumping Miss Backus, then how would you guys feel if you were colonists and they were taxing stuff that you usually buy? I mean, you gotta think about what the colonists felt like.
Okay, Taylor?
Yeah, but, that's true, but, you know.
I love that. Thank you for that. We're trying to talk as scholarly citizens with respect. That was very good. That's true, Sadie.
But, if we would have stayed and tried to work it out peacefully, not as many people would have died, and it's not likely, I don't know this for sure, but it probably would not be the same as it was then. Now it probably wouldn't be as bad.
Okay, Cutter?
But like as Tyler said, we try to ask the British to lower our taxes, but what did they say? No.
Okay. All right, Wendell, we're talking scholarly.
I hear what y'all have said.
Good.
But I listened. You can take that too.
I don't think we should point when we're talking scholarly. Okay.
And then, but the way Sadie said about how the stamps, if y'all hadn't left across the Appalachian Mountains and made the Native Americans mad, we wouldn't have had to come over here and fight for y'all and keep them off of your backs. And then we wouldn't have had to pay for the war, and then we wouldn't have had all this crap.
We wouldn't have to have
You were doing good till the very, very end. Okay, so we're going back to this side. Sadie's the only one with her hand up.
Okay, so taxing paper does not have anything to do with Indians, and also I have something else to say. I mean, like, you guys have to think about how the colonists felt about this, because how would you feel if all of a sudden there was like a tax on how many horses you have?
Well, nobody really has.
Sarah would be in trouble.
Exactly. So think about that.
Okay, please don't talk when someone's speaking, okay? All right, Sarah.
I hear what you're saying, but going back to rebuttal 1, which was Eric and Wendell, the information came from historian.com, and it said where's that? After the war, Britain imposed taxes on the colonists because they needed some form of payment to recover. The colonists did little in the war, they did not help out, and they complained about equality in taxes. They were not willing to support their country that they were in, they were not willing to support Britain, and they didn't help them at all, and they weren't willing to help them recover from what Britain was doing to help out the colonists in the war.
Okay, Sydney?
I believe that if the British really wanted to tax them, I don't think they should have taxed the colonists on things that they use a lot. Maybe things that they buy not very often, but still has a high price maybe for, like we do now, we do it like a couple cents a dollar. I think that would be way more civilized than doing it on just things that they buy a lot of.
Okay, good point. Okay, Lauren, it's your turn.
Okay, going back to what Sadie said about how the tax on stamps has nothing to do with Native Americans. Okay, most of this school year in here, we've been talking about how things influence other things in history. The Stamp Act influenced the colonists, y'all patriots, to come over to the Appalachian Mountains and disturb the Native Americans. So that's what I was.
Can I add on to Lauren's?
No, we're going back and forth. Is there anybody besides Sadie ever here? Okay, Sadie.
The colonists weren't trying to disturb the Native Americans. They wanted to see what was there. I mean, if someone tells you, don't go in that room, do you automatically, like, want to go in that room? Yeah, you do want to go in the room. So if someone tells you not to go somewhere, they're going to want to go there. That's all.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Anna Maria.
Hi, I'm adding on to what Laura said. Like, we've been learning about like stuff about the domino effect, and what the Patriots did affected what happens to the Native Americans. They just started off the first domino, which ended up coming to the Native Americans. So all that does relate to.
And you could say the same about the British.
Your hand was up.
Your hand is not up.
That is
Oh,
not
no,
dollar
no,
ago.
no. Okay, it's your, does anybody besides Sadie have a remark over here? Come on, Tyler.
Tyler wants to blast y'all.
Jared,
Go for it.
do you have anything?
Yeah, Jared.
Okay, all right. Yes, Peggy.
Going back to what Cutter said when he went back to what I said, where Lauren and Sarah stated in their rebuttal too, it says, yeah, we said no at first, but the British were trying to do it peacefully, and then all of a sudden the colonists started throwing stuff and like cussing them and everything for no reason. The British were trying to do it civilized, and I mean, if they weren't shot, they would have been beat to death. So it's, you know, they didn't really act responsibly, and they were.
Okay, Cutter, hurry, we're almost out of time.
Well, like I said earlier, we asked them, and they said no. And then we kept on asking them the same thing. They kept on saying no. So what else would we have to do? They kept on refusing us. There is nothing else to do except revolt.
Okay, it's Wendell's turn.
Okay. So, going back to what Sadie said, if the Patriots or the colonists just wanted to go over there and look and see what's in the Appalachian Mountains, why did they have to kill the Native Americans and try to drive them westward? Why couldn't they have just went and looked? Like, because some people just went and looked and didn't take anything and tried to take it for themselves, and they were fine.
Okay, Sydney?
Like your friend.
I see what Taylor was saying about that, like, they didn't have to be so mean about it. You know how heated we get when we get this, just little debates? If the British were, like, really threatening their whole livelihood, do you think we would just get really mad and start throwing them? Because we get mad and want to throw stuff at each other when we just do little debates like this. You know what I mean, guys? You know what I mean? Not so.
That's a good point. Okay,
Ooh, Arlette.
Just say a random thing.
You're just taking up time, aren't you?
No, I didn't mean to.
Straight.
Alright, go Sadie.
Okay.
Say my class.
Yes, yes. Thank you guys for
Good
coming
job,
over.
guys.